Hello, friends. This is the fourth game that I played in the Vegas tournament, and I actually got my pairing by text that I was playing someone with the same last name of someone that we were hanging out with. I mentioned I was with my friend John earlier, and I actually reached out to him. I was like, hey, does your friend have a younger brother or just any brother? He's like, yeah, he actually does. I was like, dude, I'm playing him. So this guy was actually the closest opponent in my age that I had the whole tournament, which is cool. Uh, but also, he was the highest rated opponent that I was playing because you can see he's 1879, which is a full 100 points higher rated than I am. So I was a little nervous, especially with the black pieces. And this is also the second time that I had the black pieces. And this time I was also saying, please don't play d4. But after my first loss with the black pieces earlier in my first loss in the tournament, I was feeling much better and more prepared. And yeah, I just had this confidence this time. So I also was well rested, like I said, and yeah, let me just dive into this game here. So let's see. He goes d4, of course. So this time I was like, all right, I know what to do now. And basically, well, it's not so much that I know what to do, it's more so that I know what not to do. And it's not to play bishop f5. So I started the same knight f6 here, and I go e6, not even playing d5, uh, not even allowing myself to tempt myself to play bishop f5. I just go e6. So yeah, he just continues with development here. He's playing in London with bishop f4. I play d5 now, and he goes e3, and I just contest his bishop, and he goes back. So I don't want to take opening up his h file to help attack my king side. I just castle, and he brings his bishop out, attacking h7, and I just go with b6, preparing for c5. So he brings his knights to d2. I go with c5, and the bishop's not going to f5. The bishop instead is going to trade off for that light square bishop. We're going to a6 here. So I don't normally play like this. I feel like bishop b7 is the idea, but remember my last game, I went bishop f5. So I really don't know what I'm doing with this light square bishop, but what I do know is that if they went here, I probably would have gone here. Instead, they go with this c3 structure, and so they kind of put all the pawns on dark squares. It's really hard for this pawn to move because it's not going to take anything anytime soon if he is not going to push these pawns. So I took matters in my own hands and just tried to trade off this way. Typically, I like the bishop outside the pawn structure, but like I said, bishop f5 is not that good. So typically, when the bishop is inside the pawn structure, it's not so good. Which means if I can trade it, then I'm pretty happy because my opponent has all these pawns on dark squares, which tells me that their light square bishop's pretty good. It's, like I said, attacking h7. And typically, what they like to do is bring the bishop back, bring the queen forward, and try to attack this knight and cause some chaos on the king side. But they haven't castled yet. So if they go back now, this bishop's going to be really annoying, preventing them from castling. And so, yeah, he just decides to trade. He takes, knight takes. And so, yeah, my knight's a little sidelined here, but that's okay. He goes knight here, which makes sense. Probably going to play this and this or something to reinforce the center. I go queen here because I'm already contemplating like bringing the knight back and trying to contest this guy with a move like knight to d7. But the problem is knight takes f7, temporarily taking advantage of this hanging bishop here when the knight is here. So I go queen here just to directly defend the bishop. He castles. I bring the knight back. He goes here, reinforcing the knight, and I go knight c6, trying to put some more pressure on the knight. Not really threatening to take because I will get my pieces forked. He goes rook opposite my queen. I bring the knight back. And at this point, I was definitely considering bishop h4. I really wanted to play knight to f5, attacking the bishop, attacking the pawn, forking the pieces. So maybe he was worried about that, and he didn't go for that at all. He went for the much more passive bishop to f2, just defending this pawn. So I bring my rook to the c file. He goes here. And yeah, for the longest time, I had been wanting to move this knight so that maybe I can play f6 to kick this knight out. But the problem with moving this knight is covering these light squares. So as soon as the knight moves, the queen will come out and attack me. And I didn't really like that too much. But after the move g4, it blocks the queen here. So I actually took a long time here to think about what I wanted to do next. And really nothing made much sense to me. I wanted to play on the queen side. I considered taking, pushing some other pawns. I considered taking. I considered some pawn push. Maybe even knight here, but nothing made sense except for knight e4. And yeah, like I just justified it by this reasoning that the queen could no longer come into h5. So after g4, he's really trying to come after me, so I just moved the knight. I knew that he could take, and this pawn would be kind of awkward to hold on to. I could defend like this, of course, but it's just an awkward pawn. Also considering like f5 maybe, but yeah, he takes, pawn takes. And, here I started thinking, like, obviously queen c2, just trying to attack the pawn, but this knight is actually super short on squares. This pawn here, although under attack and can be defended, it is blocking this knight's retreats. g4 also blocks the knight going this way, so the knight's only move is to go to c4, where from there they can take the bishop. But I take here on d4, and the idea is that if I get to go again, f6 traps the knight. So the knight can no longer go to c4 because after taking here, it opens up my queen. They can't take with this pawn because queen takes queen, wins a rook for me. So they would have to take like this, but again, this pawn's here. So then I would go here, and the knight would be trapped. Although really interestingly, I looked at this with the computer, and it says pawn takes pawn here, queen takes. Looks like I get a free knight. But then after pawn takes, it's my bishop that's actually trapped. They have connect 4 here, which is better than my bishop. So I would have to give back the material, but it would still be an even material game. Pretty interesting, and to just continue on from here. But yeah, we did not see that. At the time, I had been calculating that after I take here, he just has to take back, otherwise he's losing the knight. And I guess my opponent agreed because they took here. And then pawn takes, hits the bishop, bishop takes, and now, after this series of pawn trades, they've kind of extended their king side. Their king's looking a little loose here. And this bishop is the only piece that's guarding this diagonal. So at this point, I just bring the knight in, attacking the bishop. And I was really thinking that they would go back like this. Then I realized that bishop here also seemed like a really good move, just centralizing the bishop, attacking my king side. I thought that was really decent, getting out of the way of the knight. But if I got to go again, if I play 2 moves in a row, and that's really my line of thought for a lot of my attacks, is like, if I have as many moves as I want, what do I do? What's the threat? How do I make threats? And the threat here is to take the bishop, queen takes, and then play bishop to c5, pinning the queen to the king, winning. So they cover this c5 square with their knight. This I thought wasn't that great for them. It gets the job done, but it's really peculiar because now like the knight on e5 that had some influence on my half of the board is now solely in a defensive role. So I didn't think that was too good for them. I thought they should have saved their bishop because at this point I, was considering knight here, hitting the queen, hitting the pawn, forcing queen here, and then I thought like maybe queen here, hitting the knight, hitting the pawn. I thought maybe they would defend the knight somehow, and then I would take the pawn, and then they go here, and then they take that. And I don't know. It wasn't really looking too good for me, so I thought positionally the best thing I can do is to take that bishop, because I thought that bishop was going to d4, and that bishop would have been a good piece, but they didn't. So I wanted to snap it off right away, even if I could have won maybe a pawn in another line, I just take the bishop. Pretty simple. Queen takes, what else? And now this knight is paralyzed, right? Because bishop here is a huge threat. Queen and king lined up together on the same diagonal, asking for trouble. So yeah, really exposed king here. They've overextended. My king's really safe. And so I thought to myself, hey, this is a pretty good position. My opponent's 100 rating points higher than me. I'm pretty happy. I'm playing with the black pieces. Let's win this game. Like, this guy's been on his heels. I've been playing some pretty good moves. And yeah, I just go here. So again, like I said, queen here was an idea at some point. Like, I just want to put pressure on this knight because the knight's the only thing saving the queen right now. But queen here, I mean, the knight is defended by the bishop or the queen, and pawn here saves this pawn, hits my queen. I can't take here because it's defended by the rook. So I go rook f to d8, just x-raying the knight, putting some pressure there. And here he goes rook c to d1. So now queen c4 is really strong. Again, more pressure on the knight, pressure on the pawn, and there's no b3 this time because then queen takes pawn. So I'm on the verge of winning material. He was also probably worried about this, and like this pawn is pinned to this pawn, and yeah, he plays h3, and at this point he offered me a draw. And I forgot when exactly during the game, but I thought it was pretty interesting. His girlfriend walked by and they exchanged looks, and I could tell that she was like, are you done with the game? like let's do something. We're in Vegas. I don't want to watch you play chess all day. And at that moment, I knew. I was like, oh, we're going to beat this guy. Like, his mind is not in the game right now. He is thinking about Lord knows what. And I just remember thinking, like, all right, I'm just going to focus up, crush this guy, and move on to my next game. Actually, this is the last game of the day. So I was like, I'm just going to win this game. And that was my mindset. Like, this king is so exposed. He pushed the third pawn in front of his king. And yeah, I just grabbed this pawn. So I remember thinking, like, rook here, queen here is really strong because I have a huge threat on his knight. And his rook's going to be really sidelined if he takes this pawn. So I go back. No way does he take, because I was looking at bishop b8 initially, attacking the rook, attacking the knight. And then I saw knight could actually move, attacking my queen. And from there, I was like, you know what? Let's not look at that. Let's look at bishop f8, which is honestly not that good. Like, I should pursue these kinds of lines a little further, but I just gave up on it a little too quickly. But I really like this bishop f8 idea. Similar idea, not directly attacking the rook, but just attacking the knight. And I thought that if they try to defend the knight, then bishop c5 would be really strong, because if knight takes, we have queen takes rook. So that's why I thought the rook could not take, because any bishop move was really, really good, because then the knight would be pinned to the rook. But upon further analysis after the fact, I found that the move rook f3 holds everything together, unless I go bishop b8. So bishop b8 works because it attacks the rook, and even if knight here to b4, let me just show you guys. I have this really nice move, queen c5, threatening the queen, pinning the queen, and if queen takes, pawn takes, then both pieces are hanging. You can't really stop that. So this is a pretty cool line that I didn't see, but maybe my opponent saw. And so he did not take this a7 pawn. He dare not. Instead, he goes rook f to d1, trying to help support the knight. And here I had another deep think. Thought a lot about what I wanted to do. Thought about pushing this pawn or something. Maybe make a flight square or something. Maybe even go here. I don't know. Those were a little too committal for me. And then I realized the simplicity of the position. I'm up a pawn, and I could force a series of trades here that gets me to a really nice endgame. I played bishop c5, just pinning the queen. So knight takes, and now queen takes rook with check. rook takes with check, king move, and now rook takes knight. I saw this and I thought to myself, what can this queen do? I'm going to double on the d file. I'm going to check the king a lot, maybe even win the queen back. And that's just going to be a really simple, clean endgame. The two rooks versus the queen, classic. So yeah, he goes here, and I realize, obviously he's attacking the rook. He's trying to come here, attack the pawn, attack the back rank. My plan was to just double here. And then I started to think, maybe rook a1. Maybe don't even give him queen a6. Like, what is his queen doing? And I thought, you know what? My rooks are a little loose. Like, the best thing you can do in a two rooks versus queen endgame is to coordinate your rooks. Sometimes the queen's better because the rooks are tied together and they can't do that much. But in this endgame, the rooks are definitely better because the queen is the one that doesn't have a lot of options because this king is so trapped. These pawns are so extended and the king has no shelter. Besides the queen, of course, but the queen is not a good defender against the two rooks. And you'll see how in this game. But I'm constantly going to be threatening to just trap the queen again. So the queen has to get out of there, where else a6 was the original plan. So yeah, I decided not to go rook a1. I decided to allow queen a6. There you go, queen a6. And now rook to d7, just holding on to the last pawn. So their only hope here is to promote these pawns, basically. And that means they have to get rid of these. So I'm going to hold on to these guys. Rook d7, and yeah, there's queen check, but I have rook block. And then, yeah, maybe the queen can attack a7 again, but I have the second rook then to come and protect. And then we can make a flight square, and we can proceed from there. He does not even go for the check. He just pushes his pawns. And now I have check. If the king goes up, I have another check, forcing the king here. And I don't know, it's kind of awkward. Maybe if they go here and here, I have some more checks, maybe like pawn push and that, and it's not great for them. But yeah, he just decides to go back. I thought king towards the center would have been a little bit better, a tad bit better, because, it's like a move closer. They could attack the rook, maybe not get back rank mated. But like I said, his mind's probably not in the game. It'll be interesting if you watch this video and maybe leaves a comment about, yeah, like, dude, I had to go somewhere or something. But yeah, I'd only offered to draw once before in my life, and it's because I had to go somewhere. And I've been there, so I understand. But yeah, he offered that draw earlier, and I was like, no way. So kept playing on, and I'm in a really solid spot here. So I just make a flight square. So yeah, once you get this rook here on the second and the king on the first, the idea is to just move this rook and then get the second rook in for mate. Can't do that too quick because queen c8 would win this rook if they weren't connected. So make a flight square, put the king off the back rank, and now the rooks are free to actually get to work. So my opponent trying to make a flight or a pass pawn, I just get behind it, preparing for mate. So they have two ways to stop, queen here or here. They're both pretty passive. He decides for this. I finally take, and now he pins me. So I have to save this rook without moving it, which means I have to play rook to d2. So now he takes, and I can't just take back because I'm pinned, so I play g6. He goes here. One last effort to save this pawn because this rook would be hanging, but this is where the game ends really quick. Simply just check, king here, check, king here, and another check wins the queen, king here, check, king takes is forced, and I'm just up a rook. So he didn't actually do any of that. He resigned after this check. But if the king goes here, then I still play rook h2 regardless, threatening this mate. And so now he has to go here. His queen can't leave the back rank either because I have this. So king here, and then this just transposes. It's forcing. So yeah, pretty nice game, I'd say, overall. Pretty happy with this one. Definitely one of the highest rated opponents that I've ever beaten over the board. And yeah, with that, I won 3 out of the 4 that I played, and I still had that one forfeit win. So I'm at 4 out of 5, which puts me tied for second. Only like a handful of players are ahead with only a draw. which is pretty exciting. So that was that game, and I only have 1 day left of the tournament, so 2 games left. And actually, someone that was in our group, well, I guess technically part of the Liu crew, if you're a fan of Kimmy Liu on Twitch, Kimmy Liu 18, we had a Discord call, not a call, but a group channel, I guess you could call it. And one of them was in the same section as me, and he was also 4 out of 5. And the day before, predicted that we would play together. He said we would probably play together tomorrow. And I looked at the standings. There were like 12 other people with our same score, not to mention the handful ahead of us. So I was thinking like, it's pretty low odds that we would get paired. Like I feel like if there's 12 of us at 4 out of 5, that means I will have like a 1 in 11 chance of getting paired with him specifically. But yeah, we ended up getting paired. So I will go over that game on the next video. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Really like the in-game technique here with the 2 rooks versus the queens. And I'll see you guys next time. So take care.